Reading with your kids.
Hola, niho, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, ciao, bonjour, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Chadley. This is Reading with Your Kids. We are beaming out to you and the entire universe from the beautiful, book-loving neighborhood of Reedville, the loveliest neighborhood in all of Boston. We are so delighted and honored that you're joining us. Here at Reading with Your Kids, our mission is simple but powerful: to bring families together through the shared magic of books and stories. In every episode, we sit down with fascinating folks who are creating books that open hearts and spark imaginations. We would be so very honored if you could help us grow our mission by telling all of your family and friends about the show. Tell your kids' teachers, their librarian, the principal, the crossing guard, that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network, and they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods Podcast, Addict, CastBox, YouTube, Amazon, Audible, wherever you find your favorite shows, you can find Reading with Your Kids. Really wonderful show for you today. First up, Chrystal D. Giles is here to celebrate Listen to the Girls, a really powerful middle grade novel. You don't want to miss this interview. And later in the show, we'll be speaking to Barney Bright and Michelle S. Kennedy about their picture book, Cell Phone-itis. This episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by Atmosphere Press. Have you been dreaming about publishing a children's book, one that sparks imagination, creates bedtime memories, and maybe even becomes part of a family's story for years to come? The truth is, great ideas deserve more than a file sitting on your laptop. They deserve to become real books, beautifully designed, professionally published, and ready to reach young readers everywhere. At Atmosphere Press, you get expert guidance through every step of the journey, from editing and illustration to design, distribution, and marketing. So your book doesn't just get published, it gets positioned for success. Whether it's your first picture book, a middle grade adventure, or the story you've been carrying for years, now's the time to bring it to life. Visit atmospherepress.com to send in your manuscript and see what your book could become. That's atmospherepress.com, where your book can go above and beyond even your wildest dreams. This episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by Fart Boy and Reeky Dog, Dino Doom. Fantastic new graphic novel written by New York Times bestselling author Joan Holub, who's written over 200 amazing books for kids. It's school sleepover at the museum. What could go wrong? Well, how about this? A snack-fueled explosion of garbanzo beans and peanuts unleashes a stink so powerful it brings the dinosaurs back to life. Now, Fart Boy, Reeky Dog, and their friends are in the middle of a dino-sized disaster. They have to solve tricky riddles, find missing bones, and stop the stinkiest villain of all, Professor Gravy Pants. Because if they don't, the dinosaurs could take over. Or worse, they could become Dino Dinner. This action-packed graphic novel is bursting with friendships, adventure, and enough laughs to shake the museum walls. If your kids love superheroes, if they love dinosaurs, and if they love to laugh until they can't breathe, then Fart Boy and Reeky Dog Dino Doom is the book for you. Because sometimes the power to save the world comes from the unlikeliest place. Grab your copy today and get ready for a reading adventure that's truly dynamite. Joining us right now from the beautiful city of Charlotte in North Carolina. Our guest is here today to celebrate her new middle grade novel. It's called Listen to the Girls. Please welcome to the show, Chrystal D. Giles. Chrystal, how are you?
I'm wonderful and happy to be here.
Chrystal and I were joking about I had to spell out her name phonetically so I remember how to pronounce it. And as soon as I went to pronounce it, I looked at what I wrote and I'm like thinking, I don't know what that means.
People get it wrong often, and it's okay. I will correct you, but
Good.
do not feel bad. People get it wrong often.
Well, tell us about, and people listening to the show know I mispronounce names all the time, so it's nothing, certainly nothing personal. It's my personal failing. Talk about Listen to the Girls, please. Who are the girls we need to listen to?
Oh, I love that. So Listen to the Girls is my third middle grade novel. It follows the main character. Her name is Calla, and it is the last day of 7th grade. She's excited to have a summer break that does not include summer camp. She is hanging by the pool with her friends. Then the day goes a little bit off. Rumors start to swirl about her favorite teacher, and there are some accusations that he has had some improper conduct with previous students. And so Calla is confused and she's shocked and she doesn't know what to do. And so the book follows her on this journey to discover truth, and she learns to listen to the girls. The girls are some of the people who are bringing up accusations about this teacher, but also she learns that there are lots of other things that we can learn from listening to each other.
Wow. Talk about a powerful and important topic. What inspired this?
So lots of things inspired it, I suppose. Two things kind of guided my writing with the story. The first being this real life topic that unfortunately there are some adults in our world who are improper with young people. And that can be family members, it can be neighbors, clergy, just in general, coaches and such. Sometimes that happens. I decided to focus on a teacher particularly for this story because unfortunately in my district that has been a topic in the news a lot over the past several years. Some stories, even as harsh as reaching kind of national news coverage. And so those stories kind of stuck with me a lot. I'm a parent. I have a student in the school district. And so just kind of curiosity, but also I have a deep care for community and how our young people interact. And so that was kind of the inspiration for the general plot. My second inspiration has a lot to do with Calla and her emotional journey. So this book has a bit of a slowed down pace so that we get to interact with her from an emotional level. What does it mean to be confused? What does it mean to not know what to listen to? What does it mean to maybe change your mind? And so our young people are at a point when they are 10 and 11 and 12, when they are getting lots of information from outside sources. And this book takes an up close look at what it means to kind of parse through that information and turn inwardly and figure out how to feel. And so those two things are my guiding inspirations.
Wow. I just want to take a moment to just remind everybody that, kids who are abused are most often abused by someone they know, whether it's in unfortunately a trusted adult. And so I think that's something that we hopefully we're realizing and remembering. I know back in 1987, when I first started doing educational magic shows, that was a huge topic, the whole stranger danger thing. And when I did research into what's the best message to give to kids through my magic about this, and I learned the fact that, stranger danger is very, very, very uncommon for kids to be attacked by a stranger. And unfortunately, back in 1987, no one wanted to hear that message. So that show got canned, and I didn't present it more than once. But I think it's important. And I love that you're presenting this because I think we have to have conversations with our kids about it. Hopefully it doesn't happen in your kid's school or in your kid's school district, but it's going to happen somewhere where it's going to be picked up on the news, and chances are your kids are going to hear about it either on the news or in a newspaper or more likely social media. And it's I think this is super important for families to talk about. How would you suggest families start this conversation? If hopefully listen to the girls together. What would be your way to start a conversation about this?
Yeah. So first of all, thank you for saying that. Really about how often these things happen with people who are familiar to us. And so this book kind of dives into that general principle that it is often someone trusted. And so, and that's one of the signs that are discussed in the book. So to your question about how to start the conversation, all of my books kind of start conversations. It's one of my favorite things about middle grade books because they are very easy entry points into topics, whether they be serious or spooky or scary or funny. They are usually great entry points into conversations. And so this book is that. It does not start in a way that's spooky or dark. The book overall has a very careful, light, easy conversation start to a topic that is a little bit heavy at moments. I actually worked very hard to make sure there was a good bit of levity. And so there are like some humorous moments, there are light moments, there are fun moments. And so this book is not going to smack you in the face and have you scared. It is my job to not do that. And so I take that very seriously. This book absolutely can be a part of a conversation around grooming, around sexual harassment, around just general boundaries. How do we know what makes us uncomfortable? Mm-hmm. Oftentimes we don't know. Mm-hmm. And so this book can be a conversation starter for that. I have a 10-year-old son and we will be reading it together this summer. And so we'll just have conversations after each chapter. We'll talk a little bit about how do they make you feel? What do you think? Which is what we do with most books anyway. And so it'll just be a conversation around what have you heard? What do you do with information when you hear it? How does it make you feel? And I think those are the conversations that are most important with children at this age.
Yeah, yeah. You know, when you were talking about, Calla's the last day of school, and she's excited because it's going to be the first summer that she doesn't have to. And I thought you were going to say go to summer school, which is what I had to do all the time in summer school. What was it? Was there one thing that kind of inspired this story? Was it that you wanted to tackle the topic, or was it you just started writing a story and you thought, wow, this character, this would be an interesting place for this character to be put in?
So I always start with the character first. I love creating characters. It's one of my favorite things about writing. And so I knew I had this girl. I wanted her to be smart. I wanted her to be a bit independent, but I also wanted her to have some strong friendships and a strong family unit, which is what she has in this book. And so I started there. I always like to hear the character's voice first. So I just kind of wait until I can hear it really loud and clear. I write in first person. And so it is imperative that I can hear the character talking to me before I start to draft. And so I started with her first. And then I infused this topic that I thought was important, that I thought I could lend my voice to, and a topic that kind of fit her and her family structure. I don't think I would have written this story for a different type of character. I wanted her to have lots of bolstering, lots of ways to communicate with the people around her. And so her family structure, her friend structure fit this topic in the way I wanted to have the discussion.
Yeah. Did you do any research before diving into this topic? And if so, what kind of things did you discover?
Yes. So to your point, I did a lot of research on how this happens, right? Where does it happen? And so a lot of research around the idea that people who are likely to gain our trust are people that we're close to your earlier point. So I kind of started there. I did lots of statistics on how often young people are harassed and or sexually harassed. It is a lot more often than we expect. Most of it is peer to peer, right? Mm-hmm. So there are people saying things about you or your body or making uncomfortable comments around you. And so that happens way more often. And if anyone here has been in middle school, you know for yourself how often that kind of thing happens. A lot of reading and research on that as well. There are some other great middle grade novels that tackle harassment. And so I read a good bit of those. I did not find any that really talk about the topic from the perspective of student teacher. And so I decided to look at that topic. And then, fully transparent, I thought about the first time I myself experienced sexual harassment. And I was like Calla, I was a 7th grader, and it was a peer. It was someone who I thought was my friend. And all of the emotions of shame and embarrassment and what do I do and who do I tell, happened to me. And unfortunately, I didn't tell anyone. I kind of tucked it inside, and I figured it would somehow be my fault. And maybe someone will believe me. Perhaps they would not. And so I just decided to ignore it and act like it didn't happen. And I had in some ways forgotten about it. And so when I started reading this book and reading the research and doing all the things, a lot of those emotions came back up. And so I was able to kind of fold those emotions into the story and really think about how often this sort of thing can happen, whether it be a person in power over you or just a peer.
What would you, if this comes up and a kid comes home and says, Mom, Dad, this happened to me. I lived through, the clergy scandal here in Boston. And I knew a number of clergy who were predators. And I know some of the things that were signs or signals that we should have, for example, this one priest who turned out to be a very vile predator, used to take us out and drinking. Hey guys, here's the beer. And I would go home and tell my mom, and she says, stop lying to me. Wouldn't believe it. So if your kid comes home, what would you recommend parents do if a kid comes home and say, hey, this happened, that happened?
Yeah, so that's a very interesting thing, the signs, right? Oftentimes, young people don't know. Sometimes adults don't know, right? But when I think about writing for young people, it's their first time here, right? They just got here. They don't know how to navigate a lot of things. And so this book, I worked really hard to deliver what I thought was education. It's not preachy, it's not teachy. Take my word for it. But it does give you information. And so throughout Calla's discovery of truth, she does learn the early signs of grooming, and they are kind of dispersed throughout the book. Those signs include secret communications. In today's world, that includes social media, right? Social media accounts, messaging. It can also include letters. It can also include notes that are inappropriate. A lot of those early signs are the idea of trust, right? So you can absolutely trust adults in your life, and hopefully young people have that. But if they are isolating you in any way, right? So if they are telling you not to tell your parents things, those are early signs. Well, how come I can't tell my parents, right? So that isolation is one of them. If they are exposing you to your example of something that doesn't feel like something you should be doing, right? So it could be drinking. It could be dirty jokes. It could be dirty pictures, anything that makes you feel uncomfortable. And so this book has a good bit of examples of that. Again, it's very delicately and carefully done to fit the age range. But all of those things are early signs. In the back of the book, I have some resources as well. And so it says, reach out to a trusted adult. Hopefully it's your parent, but if it's not, someone else. And then most schools have a pretty detailed reporting structure. Hopefully it works. But report it, in a structured way so that you can document those things. And this book, Listen to the Girls, ends up being a conversation wider than just the girls that this has happened to. That they decide to have a social media network where they share stories. And so if you can find a way to share, if you feel safe, if you have a circle of protection that can help you share, sharing can oftentimes be liberating, but also you can hold people accountable as well. And then therapy is also great, right? So if you have access to a therapist, if your parents can provide that, that's also a resource. With all of my work, and particularly with this work, I had a professional do what we call a sensitivity read or an authenticity read. And so I had an advocate in this space read the book, give recommendations as well. So all of those things are kind of baked into the book to make sure that it reaches the people it's supposed to reach in the most careful way possible.
Yeah, yeah. Boy, that keeping secrets from your parents. I've taught magic over the years, and when I'm in a camp and I'm teaching kids magic, and I talk to them about, well, these are secrets, and we're going to keep the secrets, but you don't keep secrets from your parents. You can tell your parents how we do all these tricks. I don't want you keeping any secrets from your parents. And the kids look at me and they go, that's kind of weird coming from a magician, but it's like, trust me, that's.
Yep.
Speaking of parents, you mentioned you have a 10-year-old son. How did writing this book, change you as a parent?
Oh, I love that question. Having a child that is reading the books that I write now, and a child that can share some of the books that I read, it's changed a lot for me. First of all, it helps me remember how young 10 and 11-year-olds are, right? Like, we sometimes forget who they are and what they know, and we take for granted that some of this stuff is very new. And so it allowed me to find the lowest entry point for discussions, because I think about, can my child read this? Will they understand it? Mm-hmm. And so that's part of it has changed me as a writer, for sure. Also, the need to discuss things with him, even things that's like, hey, that won't happen. That's not within our world or close enough to us to happen, but that's totally untrue, right? Mm-hmm. Like, we have got to prepare our children. And so I think as my son ages, it helps me remember that I have a responsibility as a parent to prepare him. But then also, as I'm writing, it helps me be protective and not put too much harm on the page, because I would not want my son to read something harmful either. Mm-hmm. So it kind of keeps me responsible and careful in both ways.
Yeah, I think that's very important. And, one of the things I stress to when we're talking to authors of board books or picture books is like, hey, remember that your kids are experiencing this for the first time, and they're excited about it. And how cool would it be for you to get in there and relive that awe and that joy of doing something for the first time? We need to remember, as our kids grow and they're 9, they're 10, they're 11 years, they're still doing things for the first time. They're still encountering things for the first time. And this is certainly one of those things that the likelihood that your kids are going to experience for the first time at this age. So, again, hopefully not personally, but to a friend or something in the news. The research that you were doing, did you ever come away from it saying, oh, this is too heavy for me to deal with? I'm going to write a different story, or did it just inspire to say, I need to do this. I need to get this done?
I think some of both. I made a bit of a deal with myself when I decided to write this story. So the deal was that I could doubt myself. I could be nervous and afraid away from the page. So as I'm researching, as I'm reading, as I'm discussing the book with anyone, I can be nervous. I can be afraid. But when I sit down to write, when I sit down to revise, I must be brave. And so I gave my character a lot of the bravery I didn't even have at her age. And every single time I sat down to write, I would put on some bravery and say, okay, let's get through it. And so that was kind of a deal that I made with myself. You know, even in preparing for discussions around the book, there is a level of, okay, this can be a little nerve-wracking trying to present the book to an audience that may feel iffy or icky about it, or may not be sure that their students are ready for it. But in that still, I bring my bravery to those conversations because I know how important it is. Some of my early readers include professionals in the space, and I actually had one teacher who was a teacher now, but she had experienced sexual harassment from a teacher when she was a young person. And she talked about how it's needed and how she had no clue what was happening. And so many things were said to her and things she was exposed to that she should not have been. And, you know, she wrote me a beautiful letter to say, if I had this book when I was young, it would have changed my life. And so that keeps me brave too in the conversations, because I know that for as much as we want to turn our way, often we give our children so much more when we don't, right? When we face these topics with them, we give them way more than even we had as young people. You know, resources are important, but when they can be done carefully and with love, I write my books with love. So when they can be done with love, it can really be life-changing. And so I try to bring all of those things with me to the conversations, but I no doubt get nervous and a little bit scared myself.
Yeah. Are you prepared to hear that at some point you're either going to hear from a teacher or a counselor or maybe from a kid, hopefully after your public presentation, that, hey, this is happening to me now?
I don't think I'm prepared for that. I try to mentally prepare, but I don't know. And that is one of the things that when I write contemporary realistic fiction, my previous 2 novels tackle some topics as well. And I have some personal connection to all of the characters I write. It's just the thing that keeps me interested in writing. And so sometimes people will tell me things, and I try to prepare for whatever that is. With my last book, I had a thread in that book that involved a child who had a parent that was incarcerated, and it's an experience that I knew. And so I created a list of things that I was comfortable talking about. Right. So it was like, okay, if someone comes up to me mentally, I know these are kind of the parameters of things that I can say. And then I will divert to someone else in a professional space, on these other topics. And so that's probably what I'll have to do for this one as well. Just kind of create a list of things. I'm comfortable saying this. I do not have the expertise to say this. And so that's something I'll have to do. Thanks for the reminder, because I need to do that. But you know what I mean? Like it'll have to be something along those lines.
Wow. Well, you know, I hope it doesn't, because you've done school shows, and you know, every once in a while kids will stand up and go, one time, do you have a question? One time this boy threw pizza at me or something, you know, something, you know, we don't hope it comes out like that, but it's going to happen. This is going to unlock something. And it's a beautiful thing. You know, at some point, someone's going to read this and going to find the courage to say, I need help. This is happening to me. Yeah. Or I know my friend's going through this. Yeah. So thank you for knowing that and still having the courage to write the book, because I think it's going to be a great service to kids. So what difficult topic are you going to tackle in the next book?
So let me say this. Writing difficult things sometimes can take a toll. So my next book, it comes out actually right after this one. It's June 2nd. It's called We Are Joy. It's a book all about joy. There's nothing tough about it. It is a picture book. It's illustrated by Kit Thomas, and it's a beautifully joyful book. It's lyrical and poetic and all things joy. So that is another way I get to calm myself after I write a tough topic. And so I will probably maybe take a small reprieve on the tough things. But so that's what's next. And, you know, when I fill up the well again, I may write something that's a bit tougher, but, I also find solace in joyful things too. So I try to balance it out, for sure.
That's wonderful. We should tell everybody where they can go to find out more about Listen to the Girls and find out more about you. And find out more about that joyful book so they can also cleanse their palates.
Absolutely. So I am online on social media at Chrystal D. Giles. My website is crystaldgiles.com. And the book will be available May 5th, wherever you buy books, and at your local library also, hopefully.
We've had a really powerful time speaking to the author of Listen to the Girls. It's a new middle grade novel from our guest, Chrystal D. Giles. Chrystal, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
This episode of Reading with Your Kids is sponsored by Ramble Office. You know, before I tell you about Ramble Office, let me tell you about what travel used to look like for me. When I take the Reading with Your Kids studio on the road, it was like a lot. I had one box for the mixer, another case for microphones, a satchel for my laptop, cables everywhere. And I always felt like I was forgetting something. That's why Ramble Office really clicked with me. Rambo takes everything I used to juggle, tech gear, personal stuff, and puts it into one smart, great-looking unit that's designed to be a mobile office, not just luggage. Everything has a place. Everything stays protected. And when you get to where you're going, you're ready to work. Instead of digging through bags or repacking your life every time you move, Ramble keeps your setup organized and ready to deploy. Travel days stop being chaos and start being productive. It's sleek, modern, built for people whose work doesn't stop just because they're on the move. And if your job follows you, whether that's podcasting, teaching, consulting, or creating, Ramble is worth a look. Go to rambleofficeanywhere.com, all one word, rambleofficeanywhere.com. Use the promo code READ, R-E-A-D, and receive 5% off any product. It's exclusive for Reading with Your Kids listeners. Check it out today, rambleofficeanywhere.com, promo code READ. Hey, this episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by AspireDrinks.com. Hey, I have a quick question for you. Have you ever wanted a little extra energy, but not the kind that makes your heart race or leaves you crashing an hour later? Well, that's exactly why I want to tell you about Aspire Drinks. You'll find them at AspireDrinks.com. Aspire calls itself a healthy energy drink, and honestly, that description really fits. Instead of loading you up with sugar or extreme caffeine, Aspire delivers a gentle, steady boost with 80 milligrams of natural caffeine from green tea and guarana. That's about half the caffeine of most energy drinks, enough to help you stay focused without the jitters or the crash. It's also zero sugar, 0 calories, and 0 artificial additives, which makes it a great choice for parents, teachers, and anyone trying to make healthier choices while still getting things done. And get this, it actually tastes great, light, crisp, and lightly sparkling, with flavors like sweet cherry, raspberry acai, mango lemonade, that's what I love. No heavy aftertaste and easy on the stomach. Aspire is packed with B and C vitamins, biotin, and ginger. And it's vegan, gluten-free, keto-friendly, really designed for real life. And just for Reading with Your Kids listeners, you can get an exclusive discount of 20% off. That's the highest discount available when you shop at AspireDrinks.com and use our promo code READ. That's READ at AspireDrinks.com. Healthy energy done right. Join us right now from 2 parts of North Georgia. Our guests are here today to celebrate their new picture book. Is called Cell Phone-itis. Please welcome to the show first the author, Michelle S. Kennedy. Michelle, how are you?
I am great. Thank you for having me on here today.
You're very, very welcome. And returning to the show, the illustrator, Bonnie Bright. Bonnie, how are you?
I'm so good. Thank you. Thank you so much for having us.
Delighted to have you back on. Michelle, why don't we start with you? Tell us all about cell phone-itis, please.
Okay. Well, it is a story that actually Bonnie, back in 2012, I think it was, came up with a story concept and had written it and, I guess had put it out there to the world and then realized, maybe later on that it wasn't quite where she wanted it to be. And we became friends through, the SCBWI, and she had asked me to kind of take a look at the manuscript and see what I could do with it. And so we kind of collaborated on it, and from there it kind of blossomed into what it is now.
Awesome. I just have to tell you, Michelle, I am very impressed at how well you rattle off the initials of the Society of Children's Books Writers and Illustrators. I just interviewed the founder of the organization, Lynn Oliver, and she is still to this day apologizing for giving the organization such a difficult name. So she would be very impressed with you. And of course, the whole time I'm speaking to her, I can't get the letters out in the correct order at all. So, tip of the hat to you. That was.
Oh, thank you.
Bonnie, where did the spark for the story come from?
It came from, actually, I was waiting to turn onto a very busy street, and a teenager was jaywalking right through the middle of the busy road, looking down at his phone, walking very slowly and completely oblivious that anyone was even coming. Like, cars were there, cars were moving past him, and I was waiting for him to cross, not in a crosswalk. And I just thought, my gosh, we've gotten to this point where children and teens are so obsessed with their phones that they don't really know what's going on around them. And I have to write a story about this for the younger age group in hopes that they could learn early on about the dangers of getting obsessed with that cell phone.
Yeah. That story reminds me of when that Pokemon Go game came out, and we're hearing stories of people trying to find the invisible Pokemon walking into fountains at the mall. And it's just
that was around the same time, wasn't it? That was back then. That was a while when that began. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah,
possibly. It really is crazy, and I'm delighted that we're creating stories that kind of are calling attention to kids to make them aware. We're embracing technology that we really don't quite understand right now, whether it's cell phones or AI or, I had so many stories, about, happening during the pandemic of people being on Zoom and wearing a shirt and tie and their underwear and forgetting that they didn't have pants on, standing up in the middle of the meeting and giving everybody a show.
I have a funny story about that if you want.
Please.
I was on a Zoom meeting during the pandemic. I was working for an educational computer game company, and we were on our weekly meeting. And my husband didn't think that the camera had such a wide angle. And he did this army belly crawl through the background in his underwear to go past me to go downstairs. And he was on video the whole time.
That must have inspired a very interesting conversation.
Yeah, it was great. Everybody had a good sense of humor, though.
Tell me, Michelle, how different is this the story as it exists now from when Bonnie first approached you with it?
So, I feel like it's quite a bit different, although I try to keep the essence of what she had in her storyline there. It had originally been written in rhyme, and a little bit of the meter was off, so that was an easy fix. But just the storyline itself, I feel like it was probably geared more towards like a teenage group of kids. And so for picture book, that doesn't really work. You kind of want it geared more towards 4 to 8, 6 to 8, 6 to 10. So, we kind of made the character younger and a younger mindset and kind of gave the verbiage and the wording easier reading for children. And then the story itself, kind of just morphed from there with just the characters being that age. So,
yeah. You know, it's interesting. I think, like I was saying earlier, I'm glad that we're addressing this with younger kids. So we making them aware of, both the possibilities, but also possibly the dangers of technology. But I could absolutely see a parent sitting down, maybe sarcastically sitting down and saying to the teenager, we're going to read this book together, just because, you know, get your head out of the part of your body it shouldn't be in.
I think we can all learn from cell phone-itis. And I know myself, I have been guilty of it myself in the past. So it's really helped open my eyes, even doing the research for this, because we did do some research and put some links at the back and discussion points for parents and teachers. And, you know, for when they're giving their child their first cell phone, it's really a great, I feel like, a tool that they can also give to the child along with the phone to say, hey, we're going to be setting some cell phone free zones. We'll have, you know, certain times that you can use your cell phone, and kind of introduce it in that way, rather than here is this thing of technology that can just be completely overwhelming and overpowering to their minds and to everything around them. I mean, it really does kind of can change your personality when you're not, you know, focused on anything else but that phone or screen time.
Yeah, yeah. Bonnie, one of the things I love, and people who listen to the show might tire of hearing this, but, you know, this little rectangular thing that we give our kids, and we're so excited because now it's like, hey, you can use this thing to send a message literally all over the world and gives you access to the world and information. We also have to remember that this little rectangular thing gives the world access to our kids. Mm-hmm. And we have to always be conscious of that. That's so very important, and should be a wake-up call to families.
It sure does. It's super important because, and that's important to me and hits home because we had an incident in our family where I caught my daughter actually messaging through games where you make friends and you meet people, and they're real people that you're messaging. And I had no idea that's what she was doing. I had no idea you could even do that at the time. Mm-hmm. And that was years and years ago when she was young. And I had to take the phone away for a couple of weeks just to hammer home the message and give her a break from it and let her know just how dangerous that could be.
Yeah, yeah. And you're not the only one. I've heard many, many people say, like, I had no idea that kids could talk to each other, and even less of an idea that someone pretending to be a kid can talk to my kid.
Yeah,
that's terrifying. Scary.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious, Bonnie, back to cell phone-itis. You know, so this was originally your story. You wrote it. You weren't happy with it. You gave it to Michelle. Michelle kind of worked on it. And when that new manuscript came back to me, what was your first, were you like, this is perfect, I really love this, or my story was better?
Oh, no, there are a lot of similarities, and no, it's better now. I think that Michelle gave me critiques with my artwork, and I gave her critiques with her writing, and you know, not too many each way, but we really worked well as a team, and we made what we both wanted. So yeah, I'm very happy with it.
Yeah, it was definitely a collaborative effort, and that was what was so, I think, amazing about this story, is just collaborating and going back and forth and deciding what ideas work together, whether it be the script itself or the artwork, and just it was an enjoyable journey. It really was, and just learning how to collaborate with somebody, and especially someone as talented as Bonnie. It just really, I never thought I would be a self-published author, and this has just opened up my eyes and perspective, changed it totally on the possibilities and what you can do with it.
Yeah. It really is amazing that we live in an age where you don't have to get permission from a giant corporation to share your story with the world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
True.
As an illustrator and an author, Bonnie, how does that make you feel? Does it give you more hope, inspire you to create more and more stories?
Oh, always. I have another story I've already started on. The one thing that's always tricky is it can take me a year or more to finish my own stories, just because I need to put them aside when I have clients or other work. So, I wish that I was sitting here creating them full time, but I had this unique opportunity when we worked on this book that I had like a gap in time between jobs, and I was able to work on it pretty much full time for like 4 or 5 months, Michelle, I think.
It was pretty quick. I thought
it takes a while to illustrate a book. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Michelle, tell me, you said you enjoyed this collaborative process. Had you written solo books in the past?
Yes, I've written several manuscripts, and I had an agent that I had recently decided to amicably part ways with. So I'm back out into what they call the query trenches. But yes, I do have manuscripts that are waiting and ready to be out there to the world. I still would like to do traditionally published for some of those, and I'm open to possibly doing self-published for some of the other ones.
Yeah. I'll put this question out to both of you. Michelle, first, what kind of conversations do you think families can have as they're reading and experiencing cell phone-itis together?
I mean, I just think it's kind of, it just really opens up the door, I think, for parents and children. I mean, children are going to learn from their parents when they're seeing their parents on their phone constantly and things. So I think in that way, I think it's an eye opener for the parents as they're reading to the children. Oh, I need to be more conscientious of my actions and what I'm doing. And then for the children, I think it helps them to ask themselves good questions like, am I on this too often? Am I getting fresh air? Am I engaging with my friends? And I know for my son, like we didn't give him his cell phone, his first one, until he was in 10th grade. And I know he was a little bit of a pariah at that time, because he's 19 now, but we're so glad that we waited, because it's so easy to get caught up in that back and forth. And even today we see kids that'll sit side by side time, and they'll be on their phones together, and they won't be talking to one another. They'll be like texting each other or texting other people, and it's like, no, put that phone down. So I think it definitely will help conversation with parents and children and educators. I think it would be something good for the classroom. I know a lot of classrooms now are starting to take those phones out of the classrooms, and I think it should be out of the classrooms. So yeah, I think it's very important.
Yeah. What about you, Bonnie?
Types of conversations that have come up with the kids when I've read it at school. They definitely notice that it's a beautiful day and that he could be riding his bike, or hey, you're not supposed to have a phone in the movie theater. And then they laugh at the part where he's dipping his French fry in the soda by accident because he's not looking at what he's doing. But it's fun to stop and point those things out to the children so that they can talk about it. But then when I finish the story, I ask them questions. Do you know anybody that in your house that has a problem with their cell phone, or who has cell phone-itis? And a lot of them do say their parents. But yes, and some of them had self-admitted that they had a problem with cell phones. And then, interestingly, I substitute taught this year a few times, and I had the book with me. I set it up on the desk, and I said, if you finish your work, you can read this book. And these were middle grade students, and I had 3 or 4 takers, kids that really read it all the way through and seemed to enjoy it. So, like you were saying earlier, I think that message is for everybody. Kids can bring it home to their parents, and older siblings might get something out of it too.
Yeah. Well, we remember LeVar Burton first brought this up on the podcast many years ago when I asked him where his love of literacy and reading comes from. And he said, my mom. I remember seeing my mom. She always had a book or a magazine or a newspaper. And so that was great modeling. And if you're on the phone all the time and scrolling and doing that death scroll, you're also modeling probably something you don't want to model to your kids.
True. That's so true.
Yeah.
Right. My parents were always reading.
Yeah. Michelle, tell me, we always talk about, books and great books being read over and over and over again. What do you think is something about the book that readers might not catch the first time they read it, and they might not catch it until the second or third time?
I think maybe how like a slow burn that being on the cell phone is. It starts out where it's like it seems like it's a fun little toy and gadget, and then just the more subtly it's just becomes an addiction. You can put your phone down and all of a sudden you turn it over and there's the phone again. And like every 5 minutes you're checking it just to see if it lights up. And, it's, I don't think even most people don't even realize that they're doing it. And I know I've certainly been guilty of it. So I think that's maybe something they might not necessarily catch during the first time they're reading it. But if they go back through, they'll see, and progressively his eyes are getting more and more like dazed and withdrawn and just kind of zoomed in on this, gadget.
Yeah. Bonnie, can you give us a preview of what you're working on? Your next project's going to be?
I can't give it away fully, but it does have to do with fall and all the little critters that rely on the leaves that fall on the ground and how we should not be raking them up sooner than, how they should remain on the ground to protect all the little creatures. So, that's in the book, but that's not the story. So.
Okay. All right. Yeah. When I first heard that message, I was so happy. It's like going, I can put this off for a while. Wonderful. Michelle,
yes, you can.
Yes. Michelle, you said you're back in those Aquarian trenches. Are you able to tell us what you might be working on?
I've got two stories that are the more current manuscripts that I have that I'm working on and starting to query. One is it's a bilingual story, and it's about a little boy who imagines what it's like to have a tail because he sees this cat and he thinks of all these imaginative things that he could do if he had one. So that's the first one. And then the other one is about a chair. And it's sort of based a little bit loosely on Little Shop of Horrors, where the chair starts having issues with swallowing up things in the little boy's room because the boy leaves his stuff everywhere. And so a little bit of chaos ensues with the chair, and it's called Stinky Chair. So.
I love that. We should tell everybody where they can go to find out more about cell phone-itis and more about both of you. Why don't we start first with you, Bonnie?
Well, first and foremost, it is available on Amazon as a paperback, an ebook, and a hardbound book. And they can also learn more about me on Bright Illustrations with the S on the end, brightillustrations.com. Excellent. And then for Michelle, do you want to talk about your website?
Yeah. So my website is michelleskennedy.com. And I'm also on Twitter at Michelle S. Kennedy, but without the Y because they didn't have that many characters when I opened up my Twitter account. And I can also be found under Blue Sky under the same name.
We've had a really fun time speaking to the author and illustrator of Cell Phone-itis. Our guests have been Michelle S. Kennedy and Bonnie Bright. Hey, my friends, thanks so much for being on Reading with Your Kids.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you very much.
That's a wrap for this episode of Reading with Your Kids. We hope you've enjoyed it. We hope you'll join us for the next exciting episode of the show. If this episode made you smile or gave you something to think about, please consider sharing a link to the show with someone you love. Leave a 5-star review, and of course, subscribe to the show wherever you find your favorite shows. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful, starting with our guest, Chrystal D. Giles. Please be sure to check out Listen to the Girls. I also want to thank Michelle S. Kennedy and Bonnie Bright. Please be sure to check out Cell Phone-itis. I want to thank my incredible team, Chrystal D. Jackson Saltalera. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better, more caring, more empathetic place. And you do that every single time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.